will lead to extra irritability or stress. What we call in mental health rumination, which is, let's say something happened in the morning and in the afternoon, you can't stop thinking about it. You just keep, oh my gosh, you keep replaying that. Why did that have to happen? Why did this happen? Why did I respond that way?
Oh,
This
wow.
is,
So this is
yeah,
related to calcium, this
this is
rumination?
related.
Wow.
Yep.
Hi, Atara. Nice to see you again.
Hello, good to see you.
I'm so happy you joined me today, and I can't wait to get into family and minerals and postpartum health. But
Mhm.
before we get into all that, I would love you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you do.
Of course. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Atara Parkinson, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. That's just a particular type of mental health clinician. And so that's what I've been doing for 14 years, and I absolutely love that work. But in my personal life, I've had two major health crashes, is what I call them, that really impacted my physical body, but also my mental health. And I started studying about 11 years ago, alternative medicine, naturopathic work, and then went and received a certification in integrative mental health for this reason, because I'm really passionate about the mind and the body not being two separate things, but they're integrated. And so treating them in a holistic way that helps the body physically, and we're helping the mind on a mental health note.
Yes, I'm all for that. Like not looking at everything as something like a separate systems. We're all one holistic
Yes.
system and everything affects everything. Like I tell my clients, you have to sleep because if you're asleep, you
Yes.
won't have energy to exercise then you'll
Hmm.
also be craving more, you know, simple starches and sugars. Like
Exactly.
you have to do everything kind of, and I know it sounds overwhelming, but baby steps in order to support everything. It's not like you can not
Mhm.
sleep but or not do like not eat but okay I'm exercising a lot but
Exactly.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, like, let's even take that, what you said about starches, into the mental health, because then when we're eating starchy foods, that's having an impact on our mental health, but also we might feel guilt and shame, right? Like, oh gosh, why do I keep reaching for this? Why can't I put this
Yeah.
food down? Yes. And then around we go on
Wow,
this
so I love
destructive
that
cycle.
marriage that you did between the two.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
mentioned if you're like open to talk about it, you said you had some health scares. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is why I do what I do, because I've lived it and I'm super passionate about it. So I love letting clients know I've been there, right? So
yeah.
my first big experience was 2014. I had just finished my graduate work. I was running my body really ragged. And what I mean when I say that is I was working full time, 40 hours a week. I had a practicum of 20 hours a week. I was finishing my classes, right? Studying for my big test to complete graduate school. I was training for a marathon. So
Wow.
physically, yes, physically, I was over exercising, probably under eating, if I was honest, because I was in my mid 20s. And as women, we're very conscious at our age of our body image. And then binge drinking, right? Because I also was wanting to have fun on the weekends and trying to moderate my stress. So
Right.
all of that over time. And then there's also, let's go back years of some trauma in my childhood and years of not treating my body right, not eating nutritionally dense food, that then accumulated into this major health crash or crisis. And what that looked like for me was extreme fatigue. My adrenals were shot. I could not get out of bed for more than 2 hours at a time. I would get up, get ready for my day, and feel so exhausted and tired that I would have to crawl back in bed and take a nap. Now, we're working or trying to work. It's not sustainable, right? We can't just take 3 naps a day
Right.
in our life. So that's when I started to seek out help. And I went to an allopathic doctor, and he said, "Great, we're going to run some labs." And I was so excited. We're going to come back in a few weeks, and I'm going to have an answer.
You said
Go ahead.
allopathic? I'm not familiar with that term. What's
Yeah,
allopathic?
allopathic would be like a traditional doctor,
Oh,
especially in
okay.
Western culture. And another way to say that is like a Western medicine doctor
Okay.
that is going to run your blood work, and going to come back and many people have this experience, come back and say, well, your blood work is fine.
Yes,
And
yeah.
essentially yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. And I looked at him, I said, no, there's something wrong. I am a high energy person. I've always been a high achiever, go-getter. I can't I can't live like this. There's something going on. And he kind of almost shrugged and told me, well, maybe try a vegan diet. And I was already eating raw vegan. So that was not the that was not the issue here. So I went and I started to seek out some other options. And I got connected to a wonderful naturopath who had been actually at Kaiser, which is a major health network that we have here, very traditionally minded. And she knew that that was not the way to health. And so she had stepped out on her own to help people really figure out what was going on with their bodies. And she ran my neurotransmitters. And we also looked at my sleep. I was waking up 17 times a night.
Mm.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so you mentioned sleep earlier. Yeah, so foundational health, right? My neurotransmitters that were calming were non-existent. They were literally
Wow, you
nowhere
were
on the chart.
sleep deprived and burnt
It,
out. Like,
yes, completely burnt out. And then my fight or flight neurotransmitters were off the charts. They were so high. Yeah. So I was constantly in this fight or flight mode without even knowing it. I didn't feel, stressed out all the time, but my body was essentially in overdrive from years of really overdoing it. So that
right.
was my first experience. I started to change my lifestyle, started to eat a more ancestral diet, eating whole foods, cutting out packaged processed foods and sugar. And that really helped a great deal. Fast forward a few years, we're married now, and I've had my first baby. And here we are with what I now identify, I didn't at the time, as postpartum anxiety
Mm.
and also postpartum rage. And I know now that the rage comes out of the anxiety because when I felt a lack of control around the circumstances, I'll talk about sleep in a minute, the baby's sleep, but that was a big trigger for me. I then would react in anger, right? And frustration that things weren't going, quote unquote, as they should.
Right.
So that was my experience, and I experienced this too with my second baby 18 months later. But this was really impactful for my life and really eye-opening because I had never been an angry person, nor had I been an anxious person. And so I was really shocked and was like, what is happening here? What is going on? And that's when I was introduced to minerals and the importance of mineral balancing, replenishing our mineral stores, especially as postpartum mamas. And
Right.
that's what really saved me. And by my third and fourth baby, I was so thankful to not have an intense postpartum experience like I did with my first two.
Wow, amazing. And
Yeah.
it is true, like our bodies go through so much, not only, you know, for a baby forming in our body that's taking everything, the baby takes what it needs. And if you don't have enough,
Yes.
that's on you. Right. And then
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
process of labor and delivery, like you lose so
Mm,
much there. So if you don't replenish
yeah,
yourself properly, then you
absolutely.
can just, yeah. And I feel like a lot of, maybe it's, you can tell me, like a lot of postpartum
Mhm.
anxiety and depression, like they just say, oh, it'll pass, your hormones will balance, but it's probably could be prevented. Could you tell like the
Yeah,
audience some of your insights, like what minerals could help
absolutely.
women?
Yes, absolutely. So I love your observations. First, when we're probably deficient even before conception, then you're driving that deficiency even further, not intentionally, but you're like you said, the body takes what it needs and gives it to baby first because it's very important, right? It's forming a life
Right.
here. So if we're already deficient in magnesium, for example, the magnesium that we do have or
Which
consume
many
is,
people are, yeah,
oh,
nowadays.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, many, because for many reasons, but one would be stress. Absolutely. We live fast-paced, stressful lives, and that burns through our magnesium very quickly.
Right.
And
And
then
our
we're also
water.
not, yes, yes, thank you. That's a new one that I am so passionate about. Mineral and spring waters. Magnesium's high in there. It's coming from the earth, and that's an easy way to get magnesium in. Absolutely. So yeah, we're then driving the deficiency. We lose 10% of our mineral stores in pregnancy alone.
Wow.
Yep. And you're right. That's not even including the labor and delivery process, which takes so much of our electrolytes. And then if you're breastfeeding, guess what? I don't have the numbers on this, but you're definitely losing more. Yes,
I found that
in that
out.
process.
I found that out kind of similar to you. I wasn't feeling well,
Mhm,
and then like I thought I was like on top of my nutrition and everything, and I was still taking like
mhm.
prenatal vitamins, and I was,
Uh-huh,
and like I went to a doctor, and she said, yeah,
uh-huh.
but like you've been breastfeeding for a while now. I was like, really? I was anemic. I was just like, what?
Oh,
Like I've been on, like, I know I could have a tendency, but I've been on it, but not enough. Like she said, I had an
yes.
emergency C-section, so that already
Mm.
you lose more blood than you would in a
Yep.
vaginal birth. And then I was
Hmm.
breastfeeding over a year and a half at that point.
Hmm.
And yeah, I wasn't feeling well, but I didn't even think, I was like, I didn't even think anemia. I was taking magnesium and things, and I thought, but at the end it was like iron.
Yes,
And I
yes.
wasn't taking the right
Iron's
form of
crucial.
iron for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just depending
Mm-hmm.
on, but you can talk about that too, the different
No,
forms of
I love.
supplements. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I love hearing your experience because minerals are synergistic, meaning they work together or they can be antagonistic. So if we take too much of one, it drives another one
Right.
down. So we do have to be really cautious, right, of what we're doing here. So the safest way, and when people are really starting this journey, I help them and coach them on food sources first.
Right.
Okay. So let's go through these. We'll talk about the crucial four, which are the foundational minerals. And just for sake of time, that's what we'll do today, but there's a lot more nuance to this. But magnesium is the first that we mentioned. And magnesium is super important for neurotransmission, okay? When your neurons are trying to talk, right? So we can do all the wonderful things our brain does. We need magnesium for that process, as well as neuromuscular condition. These are just two small examples. Magnesium is actually required for over 3,000 enzymic processes in the body. That's a lot. That's actually over half of them. So
Right.
magnesium's, yeah, required for so much in the body. When we're stressed, right, we're going to burn through these really quickly. And people might say something like, well, I didn't have a traumatic birth, right? Like my first, actually my first three babies were all in the NICU. That's also stressful. You mentioned emergency C-section, very stressful on the body. So in that process, for sure, our magnesium is going to be depleted after that because these are high stress. But even if you don't have situations like these, guess what? Being a new mom,
Yeah, that's
especially
what I
your
was
first
thinking
time,
about.
yes,
Like, that's just, yeah, any new mom, I'm like,
yeah,
that's stressful in itself.
it's
That's enough stress.
stressful. Yes,
Yeah.
your brain is literally reshaping itself.
Right.
And I remember having a coworker laugh at me when I said, "Oh, mom brain," and they went, "That's not a thing." I was like,
It,
"Oh no, it literally, yeah, it
And
literally,
now they had a recent study that came out too. Like literally our gray matter changes. It
mm,
shifts after birth.
oh,
Yeah, it's like so
exactly."
mom brain is a real thing.
It's a real scientific thing that oh, you have to send that to me, okay? Because I'd
Yes,
love
I
to read
will.
that.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
we were talking about it in a previous recording, and that's when
Oh,
I
perfect.
had to pull it up, so I'll send it to you. But yeah, I was like,
Yes,
and
yes.
it's recent. It was like end of 2023 or 2024, beginning of
Okay.
2024. Yeah.
Yep. I'd love to read that. So, right, someone explained it this way, and it really resonated with me. You're forgetting things or doing things like putting your keys in the refrigerator, for example, because your brain is learning how to be a mom.
Right. That it
It's
shifts the focus, the
it
prioritizing.
shifts.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're learning how to read your baby's cues, how to breastfeed, how to regulate yourself after being up all night, right? We could go on and on with all the
Right.
stresses, but this burns through magnesium very quickly, okay? Potassium is required to think clearly, to use your memory, to not get lost in the chaos of what's going on. And we know potassium also helps quiet down our neurons to support healthy sleep habits and circadian rhythm. 98% of Americans are deficient in potassium. That's a
Wow.
lot. I would say probably pretty similar numbers, if not more, in magnesium. Okay. These both are calming minerals, okay, that are essential for your neurotransmitters. And if we don't have them, we're going to see symptoms like anxiety. You're going to see symptoms like emotional hypersensitivity, being easily offended or triggered, perseverating on what others think of you. These are all signs of mineral deficiencies. Over worrying, right? Anxiety. This is get your magnesium and potassium on board for these. Okay. Calcium is a
Yeah.
overabundance or not enough calcium will lead to extra irritability or stress. What we call in mental health rumination, which is, let's say something happened in the morning and in the afternoon, you can't stop thinking about it. You just keep, oh my gosh, you keep replaying that. Why did that have to happen? Why did this happen? Why did I respond that way?
Oh,
This
wow.
is,
So this
yeah,
is related to calcium, this
this is
rumination?
related.
Wow.
Yep. Yes, and an imbalance. You're also likely to be anxious that night or day around the same situation without the protection of calcium. And the last one of the crucial four, sodium. Sodium's super important for regulating our nervous system. So that when you're in a stressful situation, you're able to respond appropriately instead of sitting in the corner crying, for example, right? So
Right.
all of these minerals within balance are super important. I talk about minerals being protective, meaning they protect our body and they protect our mental health. So this is just a really quick flyover. It's obviously much more nuanced than that, but those are the crucial four that I talk about people starting with: magnesium, potassium, sodium, and calcium.
And all
And
of these are
again,
things that get depleted. Calcium also gets depleted during pregnancy because the baby
yep,
takes the calcium from our bones in order to create their bones. And sometimes, if you're not eating
exactly.
enough, then that's a lot of times that's a cause of osteoporosis in later years,
Yes,
especially women who have multiple pregnancies. And sodium is
absolutely.
another one that gets depleted. And there's
Hmm.
still, I feel like it's better in recent years, but there's still a
Yeah.
stigma around sodium. Can you
Oh,
talk about that? Like,
yes.
salt is bad. Of course,
Right.
everything in moderation, but
Exactly. Exactly. And why it gets a bad rep is because it becomes imbalanced. Because it is typically easier for us to get sodium in our diets, right? Just sprinkle some salt on it. And let's talk about two, processed salt.
that's where it becomes, because I tell them, like, if you just add a little salt to your food or whatever, that you're not going to get too much sodium in your diet. The most sodium is from these packaged processed foods.
Exactly.
And the
Exactly.
link between blood pressure and high sodium
Hmm.
is very specific. It's genetic. I used to
Yep.
work briefly at this genetic company. I can't say
Mm.
it was a great experience, but I did learn a lot
Oh.
of things. Like, so many people that were tested, like one of the things that were tested, they have the gene for, like, that
Mm.
connects hot, if they're sensitive to sodium, because some people
Hmm.
believe that sodium raises their blood pressure. This is
Hmm.
just anecdotally, but 90% of the people that, like, we tested, that at least that I was well, that I was consulting,
Yeah.
none of them were sensitive to sodium. And it was like a very, like,
Hmm.
few people that had that gene to, like, caffeine, sodium, things like that. But
Yes.
it just got a
Interesting.
bad rap, and they made, like,
Right.
sodium, but it's from processed foods. If you're just eating sea
Exactly.
salt from, that you're sprinkling on your food, then it's hard
Yep.
to overdo it.
Exactly. Absolutely. And oftentimes with blood pressure, we're also needing potassium because they work
You're
together,
right.
right? Yes, absolutely. So, oh gosh, let's talk food sources, right? Or
Yeah.
sources for these minerals so
And
that the
talk
mamas
about
out
why
there.
why it's better. Well, you actually mentioned the synergetic relationship between them. Yeah, 'cause it's kind of hard to replicate in a supplement.
Exactly.
Supplements
Yes.
can help, but food first.
Yeah. So a great example of that is when I work with people and maybe the first thing we get them going on is magnesium. And they come back and they say, I don't feel great. Like the magnesium doesn't feel, it's not making me feel good. That's a real clear indicator to me. Okay, hold on. Let's back up and let's focus on the sodium potassium first
Mm.
and get that in balance with some, we'll back off the magnesium a little bit and get those in as we still take a small dose of the magnesium. And then people will be like, oh my gosh, okay, I feel so much better in this. And so that, like you're saying, they're synergistic, they work together. It's not just one thing, but it's looking at what is happening in the body overall and how are these playing together. So magnesium, for example, little harder to get in food, but some good food sources for it's the only one I'd say that is harder to get in
Yeah.
food. But some good food sources are we mentioned mineral and spring waters, wild caught seafood, animal heart. actually. And if
Animal
you're like,
heart.
it's
Okay, I
animal
wasn't aware
heart,
of
yeah.
this one.
If you're like, I'm not cutting up a heart, I'm not gonna do that. That's okay. Some cultures it's really normal, some not so much. I actually find glandulars, which is just a freeze-dried organ put in a capsule form, and you can just swallow it down. You don't have to taste it. You don't have to cut up the heart of
Yeah.
an animal. That's okay. There's ways to get around this in our modern day. Raw dairy and pastured eggs and red meat are all great sources for magnesium. But I personally also supplement magnesium. And one easy way to do this is actually Ancient Minerals is a brand, and they have magnesium bath plates. They also
Oh, I
have an
love it.
oil
I'm not sure
and a
the different
lotion.
company, but yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that because I enjoy it, a magnesium lotion,
Oh,
but I wanted
yeah.
to ask you if it really like does it absorb and does it really
Yes.
work? I feel like I don't know if it's placebo effect, but I find it like really, calming and relaxing and
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. And where your skin is thinnest is armpits and ankles.
mhm.
So if you're concerned about it absorbing transdermally, put it on your ankles is what I do. Or I make my kids laugh before bed. I say arms up and I hit all their armpits with,
Oh,
with some magnesium. Yes. The other way to really easily do this is the bath flakes in the kids' bath at night. And then I will put my feet in and soak my ankles.
oh,
So
wow, you're
then
yeah,
yeah, so then they're getting
multitasking.
magnesium. Exactly, I'm getting magnesium and I'm watching them, right? And everybody is calming down for the evening, and that magnesium is getting absorbed and helping that process as well. So yes, oils. Earthly is another great brand. They have a good night lotion. Do be careful with the oil. If you have sensitive skin, mix it with like a coconut oil or something because my kids always complain, it burns. It can burn a little bit.
Yeah,
So
okay.
mix it with something else. But those are all great ways. I also take two oral supplementations of magnesium. I have a morning one and an evening one because there are different forms of magnesium
Right.
that have different impacts on the body. So my morning one has three magnesiums in it, paired with boron. And boron also helps the body, it helps that magnesium drive into our cells versus staying just out of the cells. We need it into the cells. So that brand is called Smidge, and they have a magnesium called Morning Magnesium that I just absolutely love. It's like the epitome. I say it's better than a cup of coffee. Super great. Yeah, super great for energy. And then the evening one that I take is I either will do the salt flakes, or if we're not doing a bath, I'll take a oral liquid called Mother Earth Minerals. You can find this on Amazon. And I just do a little squirt under the tongue. This is a calming magnesium. So for me, for example, it makes me sleepy. And so just a little bit will go a long way. And actually, clients with anxiety, I will have them like micro doses throughout their day. And so just a little teaspoon under the tongue when they're having a stressful moment or they feel like their anxiety is ramping up. So those are my favorite sources for magnesium. Let's talk potassium. Potassium is great in my favorite way is potatoes. I
Yeah.
love sweet potatoes.
Potatoes get a
Yeah.
bad rep too.
They do for their starch. But if we're cooking them properly, and actually, this is kind of weird, but if you cool
Cool them
a
and then, yeah,
starch, yes, you won't
comes
have the blood
resistant.
sugar spike. Yes,
Right.
yes, exactly. So what I'll do is I will actually batch cook sweet potatoes, and I'll cook 4 or 5 on the weekend, and then just put them in a Tupperware in my fridge. And then every morning I will pull one out, reheat it, put some high quality butter and sprinkle some sea salt on there. And I'm in heaven. It's so good. It's
Right.
what my
Yeah.
it's what my body needs. Yeah. So potatoes, salmon is another great source. Butternut squash, coconut water is an easy grab for mamas too. I love coconut water with a
Yeah.
squeeze of lime and again a little sea salt in there. Oh,
It does have a lot of potassium and it has sodium
yep.
and it's like the perfect electrolytes,
It
natural
is.
Gatorade. Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's nature's Gatorade. Absolutely. And I love that. Yes. And I actually had a client that reported working on a construction site in really hot weather. And he told me I felt awful after Atara. I felt so drained after the summer. And I said, your electrolytes you're probably depleted already. And then even more so, probably fell off the radar after that because you were sweating and working so hard. So he said, when I drink coconut water and bone broth, I feel like, but like the life comes back into me. And that's exactly what I experienced with minerals as well. That spark back in life, especially postpartum, when you feel so drained, when you feel so stressed, it's really important to get these minerals in to support the body naturally. White beans and ground beef. I mentioned bone broth, aloe vera juice, all amazing sources for potassium. Yeah, you mentioned osteoporosis, supports healthy blood sugar. When we're low in potassium, we'll see more spikes in our blood sugar. Blood pressure regulation, it guards against kidney stones, heart disease, strokes. So potassium, that's what I also love about minerals is whatever you have going on in your health, getting your minerals balanced is going to be foundational to supporting healing in that system. So
Mm.
whether it's your nervous system, endocrine system, your blood, whatever it is you're struggling with, get your minerals right, and you will probably start to see some change in that health issue.
Right. And it's something that's often like, it's misdiagnosed. Well, it's not diagnosed
Yeah.
at all because if you get
Hmm.
simple labs, you don't have a mineral panel, at least not in a meaningful way that really reflects what's going on in your body.
Yes. So that's such a good point. And people will say, "Oh, Tara, I got my blood work. My doctor ran my labs and my magnesium was fine."
Right. And that
And
magnesium doesn't reflect what,
bingo,
right.
bingo, that's it. Because your blood is your last place actually that will show up. Why? Blood has to stay at in a certain range to keep us alive. So your body will do everything it can to keep the blood homeostasis, but you will start to see it appear in other ways. Really important ones or really obvious ones are hair, teeth, and nails. If
Hmm.
you're starting to see your hair fall, and we see these things postpartum, don't we?
Right.
Our hair struggles, our teeth, our gum health, really struggling. Why? Again,
Muscles too. When people have
muscles.
a restless leg syndrome, it's so funny how like
Exactly.
just taking magnesium like solves it. They're like, "What? I've been suffering for this for like a year, and all I had to do was
Oh,
take
yes.
magnesium." I'm like, yeah,
Absolutely. It's so simple, right? It is beautiful. And that's why I do what I do and why I love educating on this because it offers such instant relief, first of all, and profound relief.
right.
Something like having I had cramps, like cramping. They call it a Charlie horse, right, in America, in my legs during pregnancy. And you're absolutely right. When I got my magnesium and potassium on board, that stopped. And I slept better too, which I think is hard in pregnancy as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, sodium, we like a high quality sodium, an unprocessed salt. Brands that I love that we have around me would be Baja Gold, which comes from Mexico, Baja area, Redmond sea salt, which is from the Salt Lakes, right? These are unprocessed from the earth. And why we want that is because you're not just getting sodium, you're also getting trace amounts of these other minerals that we're talking about, which is so important.
And they don't have the
And
fillers probably like what they add to like regular table salt in
yes.
the. It's like you're getting salt, but along with some other stuff that you don't know exactly or
Good
nor
point.
or that you don't want necessarily in your diet. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. And the last one is calcium, right? Calcium protects against heavy metals. You mentioned bone. That's pretty well known when it supports bone health. It improves cellular function. It helps our nervous system function. Again, it has to do with blood sugar regulation and our energy production. So calcium is another crucial one for all of these systems in our bodies. Great source. Do you like sardine?
No, I don't.
You
But I
do?
know.
I
No, I
don't
don't
either.
like sardines. But I know
Okay.
they're good because that was another thing from my old rugby days. I remember whenever somebody broke something, the coach would always tell them to eat
Oh.
sardines because of the calcium and
Yeah. Okay.
vitamin D. And yeah.
Yes. Pearl powder, um, yogurt, Parmesan cheese particularly, and cheddar cheese have really high calcium. Kefir, eggs, and
Yeah, I think
salmon are
ricotta
all
also.
great. Ooh, what's that?
Ricotta cheese. It's
Oh,
also
ricotta
yeah.
cheese.
I'm like, how to pronounce it?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ricotta.
that's okay. You're probably pronouncing it more accurately than I am. Yes. Ricotta, great. I love it. Um, And then the last one that I'll kind of throw out there, especially postpartum, because our thyroid also tends to really struggle postpartum. So selenium is another super important source for thyroid health. And again, please do not go out and start supplementing with synthetic selenium. It's one that is pretty easy to overdose on, but you can actually get a food source selenium called selenexol, and that is a yeast-based selenium that really changed my life, especially postpartum. And it really helps with energy production and converting that thyroid hormone.
Yeah, and Brazil nuts is a good source. I always tell people
Yes.
to eat two Brazil nuts, but again, not overdo
Hmm.
it because they're high
Yeah.
in
Yes.
selenium. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to keep it balanced. But yeah, those are some of the basics. And that's what I do in my work is I help people figure out how do I get these in my diet, right? How do I start to make small changes or shifts to get these foods and nutrients in my diet, as well as incorporating some of the mental health stuff. So, what symptoms am I seeing? How can I, what tools can I have to also cope with that until the body gets rebalanced and those symptoms heal and go away?
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so important. And when you were talking about the being depleted even before you get into
Mm.
pregnancy, I thought about a case study we had in school where one of the dietitians told us how she had a client that like lost a bunch of weight because she wanted to fit into her
Mhm.
wedding dress.
Oh
And I
no.
guess she had like, she did it the unhealthy way and wasn't eating
Right.
properly. And then
Mm.
so she was depleted, I'm sure, with minerals among other things. And then
Mhm.
close to when she like close to her honeymoon phase and everything, she got
Mhm.
pregnant. So she went
Oh,
into her pregnancy completely depleted. And then,
yes.
but basically, after she had the baby, she suffered from like, she was in postpartum depression and she just,
Mm.
I think she had like collapsed but she was just
Mm.
so depleted. And so she thought she had like some serious disease or something. And then the
Mm.
conclusion was all was wrong with her is that she was just depleted from nutrients. Like she just
Wow.
needed to eat. That was the cure, her
Yes.
cure to eat.
Yes, just
And she
eat.
didn't know it was that simple. And it was just so like beautiful to me, the evidence like of without any
Mhm.
medicine or anything, just
Yep.
feeding your body with accessible food, food,
Right.
and she was able to cure what she thought was like so wrong with her. She thought she had something terrible and she
Yeah.
was just
Oh,
undernourished.
yes. And this is actually really, really, really common. And again, I'm in America, so I can speak to American culture. I'm not sure worldwide, but I know that in America we have the tendency, especially women, to undernourish ourselves. And we have a really silly like 1,200 calories, right, a day is what's recommended. No, we
Yeah.
actually, especially postpartum, especially when you're breastfeeding, you need over 2,000 calories a day to be able to sustain your body functions and to be able to have quality milk
You have
production.
to be so tiny and not do any activity to survive on 1,200 calories. That's like impossible.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And it's really interesting. We mentioned sodium earlier, but sodium is also connected to breast milk production.
Hmm.
So another thing that I've seen, if you're struggling with producing enough milk, focus on your minerals. And I guarantee you will start to see a shift in your milk production, which I think is so cool as well. Minerals, again, are really connected to hormone health. And when we don't have our minerals, our hormones aren't able to be produced in the way that's needed. And then like it's a waterfall effect, right? This being at the top, and then we see this, and then we're seeing other symptoms, and then we're struggling with something like burnout or adrenal fatigue. And so if we go back up the waterfall,
Right.
minerals are really foundational in that process.
There are. Yeah, I feel like, especially like if you look at the nutrition gurus and things that are on social media, all they talk about is protein, which we know protein is important.
Important.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, but I feel like fiber is underestimated. I feel like
Mhm.
minerals and just nourishing your body properly and sleep. These are things that I feel like should be
Yes.
prioritized more, and movement, because that also
Yes.
you can talk about that for mental health. Like just
Yes.
something is just getting outside and taking a walk, how
Oh,
healing that can be.
so important. Another thing that we know very well as mamas is our circadian rhythm
Hmm.
gets so thrown off because you're waking up a
Right.
lot. with the baby at night, which is not normal for a circadian rhythm. Plus, if I mean, I did, I'm sure a lot of you out there
Me too.
slept during the day. Yeah, because you're tired, right? And so
Right.
you're getting naps in.
You're trying to nap when,
Hopefully.
yeah, whenever you
Exact.
can.
Yes. Yeah. So this is really hard on our circadian rhythm. So something that I did with my third and fourth that was so helpful was getting that morning sunshine in the eyeballs, right? There are actually special sunlight rays in the
Hmm.
morning and evening time that signal to our body to release the hormones connected to sleep or wakefulness. So something as simple as you ideally wake up, I want to say sunrise, but take that, with a grain of salt, right? You don't have to be getting up, but ideally in the morning, right? Before
Right.
10 a.m., you grab something to eat, maybe a protein-filled snack like yogurt and granola, maybe an egg, and you get outside. And then grab your coffee and go, even with your baby, right? And go for 15 minutes and soak up some sunshine if you can. Get it in your eyes, no sunglasses, preferably. Get it directly in your eyeballs. You will see then the rest of the day being filled with more energy and a little less tired than you normally are. Same thing in the evening,
Yeah.
right? Ideally, you are seeing that sunset with those special rays, right? The red light in the sunset. And then ideally, as much as possible, I know this isn't, we can't be perfect with this in our modern society, but staying off screens then as much as you can
Right.
after that, because that is confusing to your body. You're sending then a different signal with that blue light emitted
Right.
from phones, computers,
If
television.
you can, like some people, if you can, you can also put the filter. It's better than
Yes,
it's better not to have the screen at all. But if you have this like red light filter on the phone,
yes.
so
Yep.
mitigate some of
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. There's also red light
Right?
glasses.
Yeah.
Yes, so you can even buy a pair online that will help that filtration process. A simple change that we did, and actually it really impacted our kids. I'm sorry, I didn't say we have four children, 8, 6, 5, and 2. So I am
Wow.
in the trenches, you guys. Yes, I'm in the trenches with y'all. We started when the sun sets, we'll actually turn the house lights off, and we have a couple oil lamps and it's
Oh
really
wow.
fun.
Sounds
Yeah, they
cozy.
love it. Yeah, it is. It's really cozy. It kind of sets the mood, like helps everybody kind of calm down. And that's another example of the red light, right? That flicker and flame of natural fire sends a different signal to our body than the synthetic blue lights or LED lights that we typically have around our houses.
Yeah, I like that. And
Yeah.
sometimes I laugh at my husband because like when it starts to get dark outside, he also like turns off the lights and turns on lamps. But then I'm like, I need to cook or something. I need some
Right,
light.
it's too dark.
He likes it. But yeah, I'll say, oh yeah, this is for the circadian rhythm.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah, and that's funny to me that like people will intuitively do that,
Yeah, he
right?
does
Like
that
people like your husband.
intuitively. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. So there's something, right? That's also how I love working with clients is if there's something your body is naturally drawn towards, like red meat, for example, maybe it is sweet potatoes, like I was talking about earlier. I know my body loves sweet potatoes when I eat them because I need the potassium. I'm probably a little bit low in potassium. And so listening to our body within reason, right? If it's a packaged food really high in sugar, you know that that's
Yeah.
probably driven by dysfunction. But if it's
Right.
a whole food and your body is really drawn towards it and wants a lot of it, there's likely something in that food that is nourishing something in your body.
Yes. And I'm all for like intuitive eating, but it takes a while. Sometimes we have to shed the years of
Yes.
unlearning and getting rid of emotional eating and all that in order to get in tune with that. But if you can get in tune with your
Yeah.
body and listen to it, it'll really tell you what it
Mhm.
needs. Sometimes you'll crave a
Absolutely.
certain vegetable or you'll crave more fruits, and it's amazing
Mhm.
when you
Yes.
get back in
That's
tune
such a
with
good
it.
point. I love that you said that because this is a journey I've been on for 11
Yeah,
years now.
me
Yeah.
too.
So that's important, I think, to put into perspective for people who might be just starting this. Know that if right away some of this doesn't feel natural for you, it's okay. It'll take a minute, like you said, to unlearn
Yes, I
things
had to
that, and
unlearn, and I could just eat like a pack of cookies or something, like, without
Exactly.
even thinking about it. Like
Yep.
now to think about that, I'm like, what? But yeah, I've been there. I know.
Hmm. Sugar, I love that one. I think it's one people often struggle with. And I know I really did. And it's connected to magnesium deficiency,
Hmm.
actually. So sugar depletes our magnesium. Then we consume more sugar, which further depletes our magnesium. So around
Just
and around we
like
go,
sleep,
right?
another cycle.
Ah, yes, yes, on this destructive cycle. So getting your magnesium in, that was when it actually the first changes I saw in my body was feeling less anxious, but also noticing that my relationship with sugar, it didn't feel like sugar was an addiction for me anymore. It felt like if I needed to, I could say no. Does that mean I never eat a cookie? No. I still
Right.
sometimes have a treat, but if I am having a detox or I don't, I just listen to my body and I tune in, and now my body will say, we don't need that tonight. And then I can skip, right? And some days, especially, oh, we didn't even talk about, right? Our cycle as women, right? And then
Yes.
our diet and can really shift. And so
In
that
different
week
phases.
before,
Right.
mhm,
Yeah.
absolutely, that week before my period's gonna come, I find myself pulled towards starches, carbs, sugar. And I know that that is part of a natural process. And so I try really hard to get some more minerals in and honoring, right? Some with some quality carbohydrates like potatoes, like a sourdough bread, like rice with butter on top, which is actually really nourishing for the body, especially in that part of the cycle.
Yeah. I'm all for like there was like this stage where it was, I feel like it kind of faded, like keto diets where it was like no
Hmm.
carbs, no carbs, and I'm like, carbs, this is like our, I don't think like our bodies would be designed as for glucose to be our
Exactly.
first source of energy if we're
Hmm.
not supposed to eat carbs at all. But yes, it
Right.
has to be like, natural carbs that come from the earth, ideally, like you said, whole
Yep.
grains and rice and sweet potatoes and, carbs like that, and you can feel the difference. Like I had a
Yes.
friend, he tried to do keto and he was an athlete, and then he realized that it was
Mm.
hurting his performance. As soon as he started
Yes.
eating, putting rice back in his diet with chicken and things
Mm.
like that, he saw his performance get better. I'm like, yeah,
Amazing.
it can be like a quick fix to lose fat, but it's not sustainable.
Exactly. And that's, I think you'll typically see that is when people go keto or low carb or carnivore is another good example.
Hmm.
They will see for about, depending on your body, usually about 6 months, maybe a year, you feel great. Oh my gosh, I have so much energy. And then all of a sudden they'll drop off, it'll plummet, they'll start to feel awful. Yeah, because you do need some carbohydrates in your body to produce energy. That's just how we how we
Right.
function. And so it is really important. Yeah. And again, balance,
And
right?
I
I think
feel like,
any
oh,
extreme.
sorry.
No,
Yeah,
that's okay.
balance, right.
Yes.
And I feel like when people say, "Oh, I felt great," any diet that you go on and you eliminate processed foods, you're gonna feel great. So that's why people who
Yep.
say, "I went like raw food vegan and I felt great," and then after a while they feel like undernourished, or people who go
Exactly.
carnivore, they tell me, "Oh, I felt great for 6 months," but then they feel like
They
it,
feel
any.
it.
I
Yep.
feel like they forget that the common denominator there is that you removed all of the junk food. So
Exactly.
you can
Yes.
do you can do that, but you can still eat, all the food groups.
Hmm. Yep. I think I'm spot on with you. I think that's the important part is can we move towards and in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming. Maybe it's like a single food, right? You're like, and that's what I help people with. Okay, I really love fried chicken. I don't want to give up fried chicken. Okay, I got you.
Right.
Let's make that in a way that is still nourishing for your body, right? Maybe we're picking a chicken thigh, right? That has different types of meat and it has some fat in there. We're making sure it's quality chicken. We're breading it in flour that hasn't been sprayed with glyphosate, right? And a bunch of horrible hormone disrupting chemicals. We're putting some good quality spices in there and we're spraying it with an oil, right? That isn't destructive for your body, seed oils. So maybe avocado oil is my go-to for frying, or even frying it in like bacon grease or tallow or lard. And that's helping the process. And then you're pan frying it or even using something like an air fryer. right?
Mhm.
All of these steps are adding to the nutritional instead of taking away from your body. And that's what I love helping people do.
Yeah, I love that. Making foods that they like just in a healthier manner. And just
Exactly.
like, it's not like people, or maybe some people do, I'm going to say, it's not like they're probably eating fried chicken every day, 3 times a
Right.
day. So, like,
Right.
have your fried chicken on the weekend or whenever you eat it. It's okay.
Yes.
And like you
Yes.
said,
Yeah.
just like you have like healthier ways of preparing it. And it's not from
Mhm.
KFC or something.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. So just small shifts. And so if you're starting to feel overwhelmed because it's a lot of information, right? When you start to dive into this, I always tell clients start with one thing. And that's what I also help them identify is like what is the one thing that's going to help move the needle for you right off the bat? Because we're bio individual. For what might help you really intensely might not have that big of an impact on me. So for me, it was magnesium. But if someone's really struggling with depressive symptoms, we're going to be looking at more of those energizing supplements or food-based supplements that are going to help your body. Zinc and copper are great examples, right? That help your body get those things in to help your body make ATP and make energy. And that's the thing that's going to be most important for you first off, so that then you feel like, okay, I can cook better. I can invest into my life.
Right. Yeah. You have to have the
Yeah.
energy to, well, we could talk about these things for hours and hours.
Yes, we could. Yeah. Oh,
Well, Ataras, one of the things that I love to ask the moms is self-care, because I feel like that's something that's,
mm,
it can be difficult for mothers because we don't have a lot of time.
yeah.
And it's something we kind of put under the back burner, but it's so important, I think, to have something small that you, doesn't have to be small, but something, at least something small that you do,
Mhm.
frequently to help you unwind and replenish yourself. So do you have something that you like to do?
Yes, I really love walking. And we talked about movement.
Yeah.
When I get to walk 3 or 4 times, 5 times a week, ideally, I see really powerful changes in my mental health. I feel more upbeat. I feel more energized. I feel more inspired. Movement does not have to be, like I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, intense marathon training or HIIT workouts. It can be, especially postpartum, it can be a gentle movement like walking, functional patterns, or primal movement is another example to help the body rebalance. Especially as mamas, I know we tend to start to slouch
Yeah.
inwards like this from breastfeeding and just naturally. And so opening up the body this way is really powerful. Oh, bowspring yoga is another one of my favorites.
I'm not familiar with it.
Bowspring, and I don't know if I'm saying it right. Maybe bowspring or bowspring, BOW. And
Okay.
her name is Paris on YouTube has some great freebie, bowspring workout yoga
Okay, I'll
workouts. I
check it
really
out.
love. Yeah, I'll send her to you, or you to her. And so movement like this, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a big ordeal. Some days I get to go by myself and I get to just be with my thoughts and move my body. Some days I have 4 kids in tow, right?
Right.
And so I'll put the kids on the bikes. I'll put my littlest in her stroller, and then I get to walk fast at my pace, and the kids can keep up. So I understand, right? It's not always going to be what we hope it will look like in our minds. And being a mom, we just learn to adjust with those things
Right.
and finding balance and acceptance. Radical acceptance is a word I'll throw out there with whatever we have in front of us, and being able to release the expectations of, and I've struggled with this. Oh gosh, I really wanted my walk by myself today. And that's just not going to happen. And I have to have acceptance around that fact for
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
I love it. And I love walking too. I feel like it's so therapeutic.
Mhm.
And like
It
you,
really is.
sometimes I can go alone, sometimes I'm with my son in the stroller, but yeah, nonetheless.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation. And I would love for you to tell the audience where they can find you and connect with you.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I just always love spreading awareness, especially for moms, and how can we support moms in this era. The first place I send people are my social medias. And why that is if you're not quite ready to jump in to working with someone, or financially you can't afford it yet, there's lots of free information there. So sources of magnesium, why steak is beneficial for you, or why this food, what's the benefit? You can just scroll through my social medias. On Facebook, my business page is just my name, Atara Parkinson, and my Instagram is at atara.parkinson. And if you want to reach out, you have a question on a mineral condition, you're struggling with something, you can just email me directly, and I'm ataraparkinson@protonmail.com. I also work with two wonderful functional nutritionists, and they're at the Holistic Collaboration. So if you're a person, you're like, I want to see my numbers. I really want to see on the chart my magnesium is low. Great. We will send you over there and they will run a labs for you. It's called an HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis. So you can see over a 3-month period what is happening with your minerals. And then
Awesome.
they'll offer you, yeah, it's really fun. They'll offer you a protocol. And then what I do with them is I help in their mental health. So we're again wrapping around someone in a holistic manner to support mind, body, and spirit.
Love it. So I'll make sure
Yeah,
all of the links are in the show notes.
great.
And thank you so much. This was a pleasure. I'd love to have this do this again in the future.
Yes, I would love that. Absolutely. Thanks again for having me.
Bye.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma.